Rosalind stood in front of the tall mirror, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The white silk of her wedding dress shimmered softly under the soft lights of the room, but all she could see was the reflection of a woman about to walk into a life she wasn't sure she was ready for. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, the day she'd marry Frederick Mills, the man she had fallen in love with, the man she believed would protect her from all the darkness the world could throw at her. She smiled, but inside a storm was quietly brewing. From the moment Frederick had stepped into her life, she had felt a pull, a magnetic force that drew her close, but left her wondering what secrets he was hiding behind his intense gaze. His family had their whispers, the cold looks from some of his relatives, but Rosalind had chosen to believe in love, to believe in him. The wedding was a grand affair. Guests filled the lavish hall with laughter and music, everyone celebrating the union of two souls. Frederick stood at the altar, handsome and confident, but there was something in the way he barely glanced at her, a shadow in his eyes that no one else seemed to notice. The vows were exchanged, promises made, and the world around them seemed to freeze for a moment, as if sealing a fate that neither could yet understand. The cheers faded as they left the hall, the reality of their new life pressing down on Rosalind's shoulders. The honeymoon was a dream, but even in those quiet moments, small cracks appeared. Frederick's sharp words, his impatience when she needed comfort, his distant silences that spoke volumes. Then came the news that would change everything. Rosalind was pregnant. What should have been a moment of joy was clouded by Frederick's darkening mood. The man who once held her hand with tenderness now seemed to view her like a fragile possession, something to control rather than cherish. The warmth between them faded quickly, replaced by suspicion and anger. Late one night, Rosalind overheard a phone call, Frederick speaking in harsh tones to someone about taking care of a problem, mentioning a name she didn't recognize, but one that chilled her to the bone. The man she had married was not the man she thought she knew. Fear crept into her heart, twisting with love and hope. She tried to talk to Frederick, to reach the man beneath the mask, but every attempt ended in cold silence or anger. The once passionate love turned into a cage she couldn't escape. Her family warned her, friends looked away, and Rosalind felt more alone than ever before. But what hurt her the most was the feeling of being trapped in a marriage where the man who vowed to protect her now threatened to destroy everything she held dear, including the tiny life growing inside her. Yet, in the depths of her despair, a tiny flame of hope flickered. She knew she had to be strong, not just for herself but for her unborn child. Somewhere deep inside, she vowed that she would fight to reclaim her freedom, her happiness, and the future she dreamed of. This was only the beginning of a story that would test her courage, her spirit, and the unbreakable bond of a mother's love. Frederick's world was a whirlwind of shadows and secrets, and Rosalind was slowly beginning to see the cracks beneath his polished surface. The news of her pregnancy, which should have been a beacon of joy, instead ignited something darker within him. The man she once thought she knew was now a stranger. A man consumed by anger, suspicion, and a thirst for control. It wasn't just his sudden outbursts or the cold distance that chilled her. It was the whispered phone calls she overheard late at night, the tense confrontations, and the way his eyes would darken whenever she tried to ask questions. Frederick's family, too, played their part in the unfolding nightmare. Their smiles were sharp, their words laced with veiled threats and warnings, making it clear that Rosalind was now part of a world that didn't want her there. Yet, despite the growing fear and isolation, Rosalind clung to her unborn child as a lifeline, a reason to hold on and fight. But the danger wasn't just emotional, it turned physical. Frederick's temper grew volatile, and one night, a heated argument escalated beyond words. His hands, once gentle, became instruments of pain, leaving Rosalind bruised and trembling, her heart breaking for the life she was trying to protect. Fear wrapped around her like a suffocating cloak. But within that fear, a spark of defiance ignited. She refused to be a prisoner in a gilded cage. There was Ashton, a shadowy figure lurking at the edges of their lives, whose threats and cruel words only deepened the wounds. Rosalind knew that escaping this nightmare would not be easy, that every step would be met with resistance and danger. But she was no longer the naive bride who once dreamed of a perfect marriage. She was a mother fighting for her child's future, a woman gathering strength with every tear and every silent scream. The battle had begun, and though the road ahead was dark, Rosalind vowed she would find the light, even if it meant confronting demons she never imagined existed. The walls of the mansion that once felt like a dream began to close in on Rosalind, like a suffocating prison. Frederick's smiles had vanished, replaced by cold glares and harsh words that left wounds deeper than any bruise. Every day was a battle, an exhausting war fought in whispers, shouts, and silent tears. Rosalind's heart ached not just for herself, but for the fragile life growing inside her, a life she vowed to protect at all costs. The man she married, the man she had trusted with her soul, now seemed like a stranger driven by dark demons she couldn't understand or control. One evening, the tension in the air was so thick, it felt like a storm ready to burst. Frederick returned home late, his eyes shadowed with anger and frustration. Without warning, a careless word from Rosalind ignited a fury she had never seen before. He accused her of betrayal, of lies she never told. And in a flash, his hands were no longer gentle but harsh, striking with a force that sent shockwaves through her body. The pain was more than physical. It was a betrayal of everything she believed love to be. Tears streamed down her face as she curled into herself, cradling her swollen belly, whispering promises to her unborn child that she would protect them, no matter what. Days blended into nights, each one filled with a growing sense of dread and isolation. Rosalind tried to reach out to Frederick's family, hoping for understanding or support, but their cold indifference and subtle threats only reminded her that she was an outsider in a world ruled by secrets and power. Ashton, Frederick's brother, loomed like a dark shadow, his presence a constant threat. His cruel words and dangerous intentions haunted Rosalind, making her feel like a trapped animal, desperate for escape, but with nowhere to run. In the quiet moments, when the house fell silent and the night wrapped around her like a shroud, Rosalind would whisper to her baby, telling stories of hope, of love that would conquer the darkness. She found solace in these small acts of defiance, holding on to the belief that someday, somehow, she would break free. But the scars were real, visible and invisible. The bruises hidden beneath her clothes, the fear that gripped her heart every time Frederick's temper flared, the loneliness that settled deep in her soul. Yet, amidst the pain, a fierce resolve was born. Rosalind was no longer just a frightened wife. She was a mother fighting for the future of her child, a woman gathering every ounce of courage to stand against the storm that threatened to consume her. She began to secretly document the abuse, the lies, the threats, hoping to one day use the truth as a weapon. She reached out to a trusted friend, a woman who had once escaped a similar nightmare, whose words were a balm to Rosalind's wounded spirit. Together they began to weave a plan, one filled with risk, hope, and the promise of freedom. But Frederick was not blind to the changes in his wife. His suspicion grew, his control tightened, and the house that once echoed with laughter now trembled under the weight of silence and fear. The final confrontation was inevitable, a storm that would either shatter the chains or bury Rosalind in darkness forever. As the days passed, Rosalind's strength grew in quiet determination, fueled by the love for her unborn child and the dream of a life beyond these walls. She knew the road ahead was dangerous, filled with unknown battles, but she was ready. Ready to fight, ready to reclaim her life, ready to prove that even in the darkest night, a mother's love is the fiercest light. Frederick's fury seemed endless, a dark storm that battered Rosalind's fragile hope day after day. The once handsome and charming man had turned into a ruthless tyrant within the walls of their home, his love now poisoned by suspicion and rage. Every moment was a tightrope walk for Rosalind, balancing the fear for her own safety and the safety of the unborn child she carried close to her heart. She had tried to reason with him, to remind him of the promises made on their wedding day, but her words fell on deaf ears. Instead, Frederick's accusations grew harsher, his temper more violent. One evening, the air was thick with tension as Frederick returned from a business meeting, his face a mask of fury. Rosalind, exhausted and worn, dared to ask a simple question about the future, but it was like lighting a fuse. Frederick's voice thundered through the room, filled with venom and betrayal. His hands clenched into fists, and before she could react, he shoved her against the wall, the force leaving her breathless and trembling. The pain was sharp, but the worst was the coldness in his eyes, a look that told her she was no longer the woman he loved, but a prisoner in his grip. Days turned into weeks, and Rosalind found herself retreating into silence, her spirit battered but unbroken. She sought solace in the few kind faces she trusted, but even that was risky. Frederick's family, loyal to him, watched with cold judgment, their silence a form of complicity. Ashton, Frederick's brother, was a lurking threat, his presence a constant reminder of the danger surrounding her. He sneered and whispered cruel promises, making it clear that no one would come to her rescue. In the quiet moments, when the house was asleep, Rosalind would place her hands on her growing belly and whisper words of love and protection to the child inside. That child was her beacon of hope, the reason she refused to give up. Secretly, she began keeping a journal, documenting every harsh word, every bruise, every threat. It was her armor, her proof that someday she would break free from the darkness. With the help of a trusted friend who had escaped her own nightmare, Rosalind started to weave a plan of escape. They met in hidden places, exchanged whispered words, and mapped out a path to freedom. But Frederick's suspicion grew with every passing day. He became more controlling, checking her phone, questioning her movements, tightening the chains around her life. One night, the inevitable confrontation came. Frederick accused her of betrayal once more, his voice rising in a terrifying crescendo. This time, Rosalind stood her ground, her voice steady despite the fear pounding in her chest. She told him she would no longer live in fear, that she was fighting not just for herself, but for their unborn child. Frederick's rage exploded, but Rosalind's resolve did not waver. It was a battle of wills, a war where the stakes were life and freedom. In the days that followed, the tension was electric. Frederick's every move was watched, every word recorded. Rosalind was no longer silent. She was preparing to fight for her future, ready to shatter the chains that bound her. Though the path ahead was perilous, Rosalind's spirit burned brighter than ever. She was no longer the frightened bride. She was a mother, a fighter, a survivor. And she would do whatever it took to reclaim her life and protect the life growing inside her. Frederick's rage was a constant shadow hanging over Rosalind, darkening every moment of her once bright life. The man she had once loved with all her heart was now a stranger whose temper could ignite at the slightest spark, turning their home into a battlefield. Despite the fear and pain, Rosalind's resolve grew stronger each day. Her unborn child was her light in the darkness, the reason she refused to give in or lose hope. But the obstacles ahead were more than just Frederick's wrath. His family, cold and unforgiving, sided with him without question, their disdain for Rosalind a silent but sharp weapon that cut deeper than words. They whispered behind closed doors, casting doubts about her intentions, isolating her from anyone who might help. Among them, Frederick's brother Ashton was the cruelest presence, a man whose bitter jealousy and hatred poisoned every interaction. Ashton's threats were whispered in the dark, his eyes burning with malice whenever he saw Rosalind. She knew he was waiting for the moment to strike, to take everything from her. Fear gripped her daily, but she refused to be broken. In secret, Rosalind reached out to a small circle of trusted friends and a counselor who specialized in helping women escape abusive relationships. They became her lifeline, offering support and hope where there had been none. Late at night, after Frederick's furious storms had passed, Rosalind would sit by the window clutching her belly, imagining a future where she and her child could be free and safe. Every plan she made, every small step she took toward freedom, was shadowed by the looming threat of discovery. Frederick's suspicion grew with each passing day. He monitored her phone calls, followed her movements, and tightened the web of control that threatened to trap her forever. Then came the breaking point. One evening, Frederick's fury reached a terrifying peak after a minor misunderstanding escalated into a violent outburst. Rosalind, bruised but unbowed, realized she could no longer wait for help. She had to act, even if it meant risking everything. With trembling hands and a fierce heart, she made contact with a legal aid organization, gathering evidence of the abuse, photos, recordings, and a detailed diary of every incident. It was dangerous, and every secret meeting was a gamble with her life. But Rosalind knew that freedom was worth the risk. The day she finally escaped was a blur of fear and adrenaline. With the help of her friends and the authorities, she fled the house in the dead of night, leaving behind the life that had become a prison. The road to healing was long and difficult. Frederick's family tried to discredit her, painting her as unstable, while Ashton's threats didn't end even after she was safe. But Rosalind was determined. Surrounded by love and support, she fought through the darkness, rebuilding her life one day at a time. When her baby was born, a healthy, beautiful symbol of hope, Rosalind knew that every tear, every moment of pain, had been worth it. Her story was one of survival, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. She had married the wrong man and paid the price with her freedom, but in the end, she reclaimed everything she lost and found a future filled with love, strength, and hope. Frederick's wrath didn't fade with Rosalind's escape. It morphed into a darker, more dangerous obsession. The mansion they once shared echoed with silence, but outside, a storm was brewing. Frederick's pride and fury collided, driving him to desperate lengths to regain control, not just over Rosalind, but over the life he thought he owned. News of her escape spread quickly, and with it came a wave of public scandal that threatened to unravel the carefully constructed Mills family empire. Frederick's allies, once loyal and unquestioning, began to distance themselves, wary of the growing scrutiny. But Frederick refused to back down. Fueled by anger and wounded pride, he launched a campaign to discredit Rosalind. Whispered rumors and damaging lies were spread to paint her as unstable and deceitful, attempting to turn public opinion against the woman who had dared to break free. But Rosalind was no longer the frightened bride trapped behind gilded walls. With the support of her friends and legal team, she fought back fiercely, her courage inspiring many who had faced similar darkness. The courtroom became their battleground, a place where the truth would finally have its voice. Frederick's facade cracked under the weight of evidence, photos, testimonies, and the diary Rosalind had kept as a testament to her suffering. Each revelation was a blow to his reputation, exposing the man behind the mask. Meanwhile, Ashton, once a shadowy threat, found himself isolated and powerless as Frederick's world crumbled. Rosalind's strength and resilience became a beacon of hope for others, her story shared and celebrated as a triumph over abuse and oppression. As the legal battles raged on, Rosalind focused on healing. She rebuilt her life in a small, quiet town, surrounded by those who loved her. The birth of her child was a moment of pure joy, a new beginning that marked the end of one chapter and the hopeful start of another. Yet, the scars of the past remained, reminders of the pain endured and the battles fought. Rosalind knew her journey was far from over, but with each passing day, her resolve grew stronger. She was a survivor, a mother, and a woman who had reclaimed her life from the shadows. Frederick's attempts to control and destroy her had failed. In the end, it was Rosalind's unbreakable spirit and the love for her child that triumphed over darkness, lighting the way to a future filled with freedom, hope, and endless possibilities. The quiet after the storm was both a relief and a reminder of everything Rosalind had endured. Every day brought new challenges, but also new strength. The town she now called home welcomed her with open arms, offering a fresh start away from the shadows of her past. She poured her heart into caring for her child, finding joy in the small moments, a smile, a first step, the sound of laughter that once seemed impossible. Yet, freedom came with its own battles. Frederick, though defeated in court, still lurked in the edges of her life. His anger hadn't vanished. It had transformed into a dangerous obsession. He hired private investigators, sent threats through anonymous channels, trying to shake her peace and regain some semblance of control. But Rosalind was no longer the scared woman he once knew. She surrounded herself with trusted friends and security, always vigilant, but refusing to live in fear. The legal victories had given her rights, but rebuilding trust was a slower process. Family members who had once turned their backs now reached out, some with apologies, others with caution. Rosalind navigated these complex relationships carefully, guarding her heart but not closing it off entirely. She found solace in support groups, sharing her story and listening to others who had walked similar paths. These connections became lifelines, reminding her she was not alone. Her child grew strong and curious, a living symbol of hope and resilience. Together, they created a home filled with love, far from the pain that once threatened to consume them. Meanwhile, Frederick's life unraveled in its own way. The loss of his family's respect, the public shame, and his own internal demons left him isolated and bitter. Attempts to rebuild his empire failed, and whispers of his downfall spread through the circles that once admired him. Yet, despite everything, Rosalind never wished him harm. Her focus was on healing, on moving forward, on building a life where love and safety reigned. And as seasons changed, so did Rosalind's spirit. What began as a tale of pain and entrapment evolved into a story of triumph, of a woman who faced darkness and emerged into the light stronger than ever. Her journey was far from easy, but every step was a testament to the power of courage, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. The future stretched before her, wide and bright, a promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities. The months that followed Rosalind's escape were a journey of healing and rediscovery, filled with both heartache and hope. In her new life, far from the shadows of Frederick and the suffocating walls of the mansion, she slowly began to rebuild not just a home, but herself. Every morning, the gentle coos of her child filled the room, a reminder of the love and strength that had carried her through the darkest times. But freedom was not just about distance. It was about reclaiming her spirit. Rosalind sought therapy, poured her pain into art, and surrounded herself with friends who lifted her rather than broke her down. The scars of her past remained, some visible, many hidden, but they no longer defined her. With every step forward, she grew more certain of her worth, her resilience, and the power she held within. Her child blossomed in this nurturing environment, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Together, they created rituals and memories that replaced fear with laughter and love. Yet, the past was never far behind. Frederick, though defeated, continued to cast long shadows through whispers and threats, reminding Rosalind that healing was a battle she would face daily. But now, she was armed not just with courage, but with the law, with allies, and with an unbreakable resolve. The community she built became her fortress, and her voice, once silenced by fear, became a beacon for others trapped in darkness. Through support groups and public speaking, Rosalind transformed her pain into purpose, helping women find their paths to freedom and strength. As the years passed, the story of the woman who married the wrong man and paid the price with her freedom became one not just of survival, but of triumph. Rosalind's journey illuminated the strength of the human spirit, the unyielding power of a mother's love, and the hope that even after the darkest nights, the dawn always comes. Her life, once a tale of pain and entrapment, now stood as a testament to resilience, courage, and the promise of new beginnings. And as she held her child close, watching the future unfold, Rosalind knew that she had reclaimed not just her freedom, but her destiny. Despite the distance and time, Frederick's presence still loomed over Rosalind's life like an unshakable shadow. His obsession twisted into something darker, relentless attempts to control her from afar, manipulations designed to break her spirit. He sent anonymous threats, hired people to watch her every move, and tried to poison the minds of those around her. But Rosalind, fortified by the love for her child and the strength she had found within herself, refused to be intimidated. Each threat only strengthened her resolve to protect her new life. The legal battles waged on fiercely, with Frederick using every resource to regain control, but Rosalind's evidence was solid and her allies unwavering. The courtroom became a stage for a dramatic showdown where truth clashed with lies. Public sympathy turned toward Rosalind as the details of her suffering unfolded, shining a harsh light on Frederick's cruelty. Meanwhile, Ashton, who once threatened from the sidelines, found himself isolated as the family's secrets unraveled. His bitterness grew, but without support, he was powerless. Rosalind's story spread, inspiring countless others trapped in silence. She spoke openly about her ordeal, breaking the stigma of abuse and giving voice to the voiceless. In her new home, surrounded by friends and supporters, Rosalind began to rebuild the life that had been stolen from her. Every laugh of her child, every peaceful night, was a victory against the darkness that had once threatened to consume them both. The scars, both seen and unseen, were reminders of a past that could no longer define her. Frederick's world crumbled. As his reputation shattered, his influence waned, and his isolation deepened. Yet Rosalind held no desire for revenge. Her focus was on healing and hope. She dedicated herself to creating a future filled with love and safety for her child, a future that no one could take away. As time passed, Rosalind's strength became legendary, a testament to the power of resilience, the unbreakable bond between mother and child, and the courage to rise from the ashes. Her journey, once marked by pain and captivity, had transformed into a beacon of hope, proving that even the darkest nights end with the dawn of new beginnings. Even as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the weight of what Rosalind had endured lingered in every corner of her new life. The quiet moments, the gentle lullabies sung softly in the nursery, the warm embraces shared in the safety of her small home, were bittersweet reminders of the love she fought to protect. Every smile from her child was a victory over the darkness that once threatened to consume them both. But healing was not a straight path. It was jagged, filled with shadows that crept unexpectedly. Nights were often restless, haunted by memories of raised voices and cold hands, and the uncertainty of a future once stolen. Despite the support of friends, therapists, and community, Rosalind faced days when the scars, both visible and invisible, felt too heavy to bear. She grappled with moments of doubt, guilt, and anger, questioning if the freedom she had claimed was truly hers or simply a fragile illusion. Yet, within those struggles, a fierce determination burned brighter. Every step forward was a testament to her resilience, a refusal to let the past dictate her destiny. The legal battles continued to cast long shadows. Frederick, relentless and vengeful, sought every avenue to undermine her, deploying lawyers, rumors, and even hired operatives to unsettle her peace. But Rosalind's preparation and courage turned each attack back on him. Court hearings became her battleground where truth fought deception, and slowly, justice edged closer. Public opinion, once cautious, now stood firmly by Rosalind's side, moved by her strength and honesty. Ashton, Frederick's brother and longtime adversary, found himself abandoned as family ties dissolved under the weight of betrayal and scandal. His bitter threats became empty echoes, powerless against Rosalind's growing circle of allies. Meanwhile, in her quieter moments, Rosalind found purpose beyond survival. She began volunteering with organizations supporting abuse survivors, sharing her story not just to heal herself, but to light a path for others trapped in silence. Her voice, once muffled by fear, became a beacon of hope and empowerment. With each talk, each tear shed in solidarity, Rosalind rebuilt not just her life, but a community of strength and compassion. Her child grew healthy and curious, a bright light that transformed her pain into purpose. Together, they built a sanctuary filled with love, laughter, and dreams untainted by fear. Frederick's world crumbled as his reputation was destroyed by the revelations and his own dark deeds. Isolated and defeated, he faded from the life Rosalind had reclaimed with such fierce tenacity. But she held no hatred for him, only a quiet sorrow for what might have been. Her focus remained on the future, a future she would forge with courage, love, and an unbreakable spirit. Rosalind's journey from a trapped bride to a free woman and devoted mother was a testament to the human spirit's power to overcome, to heal, and to hope. Her story was no longer just about pain or loss. It was a shining example of resilience, a reminder that even the darkest nights give way to the brightest dawns. And as she watched her child sleep peacefully in the soft glow of morning light, Rosalind knew that this was only the beginning, a new chapter filled with endless possibilities, unshakable strength, and the promise of a life reclaimed. The months following her escape were a whirlwind of emotions and challenges, each day teaching Rosalind more about strength and survival than she ever imagined possible. Every morning, as sunlight spilled through the curtains and fell gently on her child's sleeping face, she felt a mix of fierce protection and fragile hope. The life she now led was a stark contrast to the suffocating prison she had left behind, yet the memories of the past clung to her like shadows refusing to fade. Frederick's relentless pursuit continued from afar, a chilling reminder that her freedom was still under threat. His threats came in whispered phone calls, unsettling letters, and hired eyes watching her every move. Despite the fear, Rosalind refused to let the terror consume her. Each time Frederick tried to reclaim control, it only strengthened her resolve to protect the life she had rebuilt. With the support of her close-knit circle, friends who had become family, legal advocates who believed in justice, and counselors who helped heal her broken spirit, Rosalind stood firm. The court battles were grueling. Frederick wielded every resource at his disposal, but Rosalind's unwavering determination, backed by documented evidence of abuse, slowly dismantled his facade. The courtroom became a stage where truth clashed with deception, and though the fight was exhausting, every victory was a step closer to lasting safety. Public opinion shifted in Rosalind's favor, her story resonating with many who had suffered in silence. But healing was not without setbacks. Some days were heavy with loneliness, and the emotional scars ran deep. The weight of betrayal, the loss of trust, and the fear of what might come tested her spirit. Yet, in those moments, she found strength, in her child's innocent smiles and the dreams of a peaceful future. Rosalind's journey became more than survival. It was about reclaiming her identity and building a life where love, safety, and hope could thrive. Frederick's downfall was as dramatic as his rise. Isolated by scandal and legal defeat, his influence waned, leaving him a shadow of the man he once was. Ashton, too, faced the consequences of their family's dark secrets unraveling, his threats silenced by the truth. Meanwhile, Rosalind's voice grew louder and stronger. She began advocating for others, using her experience to empower women trapped in similar situations. Her courage sparked a movement, turning her pain into purpose. In the quiet moments, surrounded by the warmth of her home and the laughter of her child, Rosalind knew she had won more than a battle. She had reclaimed her life. Her story, once one of heartbreak and captivity, had transformed into a beacon of hope, resilience, and new beginnings. With each passing day, she moved further from the shadows of her past, stepping boldly into a future she had fought so hard to create. The journey of healing that Rosalind embarked on was far from a smooth path. It was riddled with unexpected challenges that tested her newfound freedom and the strength of her spirit. The emotional wounds inflicted by years of control and violence were deep, sometimes leaving her feeling lost in moments of despair. Each day brought new hurdles, flashbacks that shook her to the core, nights filled with restless sleep haunted by memories she wished she could erase, and the daunting task of rebuilding trust not only in others, but in herself. Despite these struggles, Rosalind's resolve never wavered. The unwavering love she felt for her child became the anchor that kept her grounded when the storms of doubt threatened to pull her under. She learned to lean on her support network, friends who offered not just sympathy but strength, legal advocates who fought tirelessly by her side, and counselors who helped her unravel the complex web of trauma. The community she built around herself became a sanctuary, a stark contrast to the loneliness and fear she once knew. Legal battles continued to loom, with Frederick's attempts to reclaim control manifesting in both overt and covert ways. Yet, Rosalind was prepared. The evidence she had painstakingly gathered, photographs of bruises, recorded conversations, written accounts of abuse, became powerful tools in her fight for justice. Court hearings were intense, often emotionally draining, but each testimony and piece of evidence chipped away at Frederick's facade. The public's support bolstered her courage, and with every legal victory, Rosalind took another step closer to securing a safe future for her child and herself. Outside the courtroom, Frederick's world was unraveling. The once powerful man found himself isolated, his influence and reputation crumbling under the weight of his misdeeds. Ashton, too, faced consequences, the family's secrets laid bare for all to see. Meanwhile, Rosalind's voice grew stronger, transcending her personal battle. She began speaking publicly, sharing her story to shed light on the silent struggles many endured. Her courage inspired others to seek help and fight for their own freedom. Through her advocacy, she found purpose beyond survival, a mission to create change and offer hope. In the sanctuary of her home, surrounded by love and laughter, Rosalind embraced the new life she had fought so fiercely to claim. Her child's bright eyes and innocent smiles were daily reminders of why she had endured the darkness. Each moment of joy was a testament to her resilience and the power of hope. Though scars remained, they no longer defined her. Rosalind had transformed from a woman trapped in fear to a beacon of strength and empowerment, proving that even the darkest past can give rise to the brightest future. With each passing day, she stepped further into the light, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, with unyielding courage and unwavering love. Though she was free from the physical walls that once imprisoned her, Rosalind soon realized that the scars left behind ran far deeper than she had imagined. Freedom wasn't just a place. It was a fragile state of mind she had yet to fully reclaim. In the quiet solitude of her new home, away from the chaos of the past, the weight of everything she'd endured settled heavily on her heart. Nights were the hardest, when the world grew silent and the memories screamed the loudest. Shadows of Frederick's rage lurked in every corner of her mind, creeping in through the cracks like unwelcome ghosts. there were moments when her breath caught in her throat, a sudden flashback that transported her back to the cold, violent nights when fear was her constant companion. She fought to silence those echoes, to remind herself that those days were behind her, but sometimes the pain was overwhelming. Her child's soft cries were the only thing that pulled her back from the edge in those dark moments. Holding that small, fragile life against her chest, Rosalind felt a surge of fierce love that both comforted and terrified her. This baby was her reason to fight, her light in the abyss. Yet even that love came wrapped in anxiety. Would her child be safe? Would she be strong enough to protect them from a world that had already shown its darkest face? Healing, she learned, was a winding road. Some days brought bursts of hope, sunlight streaming through the windows, laughter shared with friends, the simple joy of watching her child discover the world. Other days were heavy with grief, self-doubt, and the painful realization that the past was not something she could erase. Therapy sessions peeled back layers of trauma she hadn't even known existed, and with each revelation came tears but also understanding. Slowly, she rebuilt the shattered pieces of her identity, learning to trust herself again. Rosalind's support network was her lifeline. Friends who had stood by her through thick and thin, legal advocates who fought tirelessly in court, counselors who held space for her pain without judgment. They were the fortress shielding her from the storm that still threatened to reach her. Every encouraging word, every small victory in the courtroom was a brick in the foundation of her new life. But Frederick's shadow still haunted the edges of her world. Though he was legally restrained from harming her, his obsession morphed into something more insidious. He hired private investigators to follow her, sent anonymous threats to unsettle her peace, and attempted to turn their community against her. Each act was a chilling reminder that her freedom was fragile, a precious thing that needed constant guarding. Courtroom battles became a relentless cycle of fear and relief. Frederick's team threw every tactic they could muster, trying to undermine her credibility, attacking her character. But Rosalind's courage and evidence were unbreakable. Photos of bruises, recorded threats, and a detailed journal she kept became weapons of truth that dismantled his lies piece by piece. The public began to rally behind her, moved by her bravery and the injustice she faced. As Ashton's dark influence waned with the family's downfall, Rosalind felt a small measure of peace. The man who had once threatened her in shadows was now isolated, powerless against the tide of truth. Yet the emotional wounds Ashton inflicted lingered like invisible scars, reminders of the betrayal and danger she had escaped. Beyond survival, Rosalind's story transformed into a mission. She began sharing her journey openly, speaking at support groups, volunteering for organizations dedicated to helping abuse survivors, and using her voice to break the silence that so many women lived under. Her pain became purpose, her story a beacon of hope for those still trapped in darkness. In the tender moments at home, watching her child grow and thrive, Rosalind found joy she never thought possible. Laughter filled the rooms where fear once reigned, and love replaced the cold emptiness. Her child's bright eyes and innocent smile were constant reminders that even after the deepest wounds, life could bloom again. Rosalind knew the journey was far from over. The scars would never fully disappear, and the fear sometimes still whispered in the quiet. But she was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, a mother, a warrior who had reclaimed her life from the shadows. Each day was a step forward, a testament to the unbreakable strength of the human spirit and the fierce love that gave her the courage to keep fighting. With every sunrise, Rosalind felt a little stronger, a little more whole. The past would always be a part of her story, but it no longer defined her. She was writing a new chapter, one filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of a future where she and her child could finally be free. As days turned into months, Rosalind found herself caught between the fragile peace of her new life and the relentless shadows cast by her past. The sanctuary she had built for herself and her child was often shaken by memories she couldn't control. Even in moments filled with warmth and laughter, a sudden noise, a familiar phrase, or a fleeting expression could pull her back into the nightmare she'd escaped. The trauma had woven itself into the fabric of her being, an invisible thread that reminded her of what she had endured and what she was still fighting to overcome. But Rosalind was no longer the woman who had stood silent under Frederick's wrath. Every day, she reclaimed a little more of herself, learning to trust her instincts, to assert her boundaries, and to embrace the love she deserved. Therapy was a cornerstone of this healing, a safe space where she unpacked the layers of fear, guilt, and pain. Through tears and breakthroughs, she began to understand that the abuse was never her fault, and that her survival was a testament to her courage. Her counselor became a guide, helping her navigate the complexities of trauma recovery, teaching her to rebuild a sense of safety within herself. Her child was her beacon. Watching those tiny hands grasp at the world, hearing the first words, spoken with wonder, feeling the heartbeat of new life pulsing in her arms, all of it fueled Rosalind's determination. She vowed that no shadow from the past would ever touch this child. Each smile, each milestone, was a victory over the darkness that had once threatened to consume them both. Yet, motherhood brought its own challenges. The fear that lingered in her chest sometimes made her world feel smaller, her protection instinct overwhelming. But Rosalind met those fears head-on, drawing strength from the love that now defined her life. Despite the progress, Frederick's reach remained a chilling presence. His attempts to regain control manifested in subtle yet terrifying ways. Anonymous letters filled with threats slipped under her door, strange cars idling near her home in the dead of night, and once trusted acquaintances suddenly turning cold and distant. Each incident tested her nerves, but also reminded her of the importance of vigilance and community. Her friends and legal team rallied around her, providing support and protection, but the constant threat served as a harsh reminder that freedom was a battle, not a given. The legal fight was exhausting but necessary. Frederick's lawyers deployed every tactic to intimidate and discredit Rosalind, twisting facts and spreading lies. Courtroom drama became a stage where Rosalind faced her past head-on. Testimonies, evidence, and unwavering resolve dismantled Frederick's facade piece by piece. The public, moved by her bravery, rallied behind her cause, turning her personal battle into a symbol of hope and justice for many who had suffered in silence. Media attention was overwhelming, but also empowering, giving her a platform to speak out against abuse and inspire change. As Ashton faded into the background, his bitterness and threats no longer held sway. Family secrets unraveled publicly, exposing the dark underbelly of the Mills dynasty and stripping away layers of deception. Rosalind watched as those who had once threatened her were held accountable, their power crumbling under the weight of truth. Yet, she chose forgiveness over hatred, not for them but for her own peace. Outside the courtroom and away from the media glare, Rosalind focused on building a life grounded in love, security, and hope. She cultivated friendships that nurtured her spirit and surrounded herself with people who celebrated her strength. Simple joys, morning sunrises, the smell of fresh coffee, bedtime stories became sacred rituals that stitched her heart back together. Advocacy became her calling. Speaking at support groups and community events, Rosalind shared her story with honesty and courage, breaking the silence that often surrounds abuse. Her words offered solace to others trapped in darkness and sparked conversations about healing and empowerment. She helped create safe spaces where survivors could find strength and solidarity, transforming pain into purpose. Yet, even as she thrived, Rosalind remained vigilant. The scars, though faded, were reminders of her journey, a journey marked by loss, love, and the relentless fight for freedom. Each day was a gift, a chance to live fully and fiercely. Holding her child close, she whispered promises of a future filled with light and love, a future she had fought so hard to claim. Her story was one of transformation, From victim to survivor, from silence to voice, from fear to empowerment. Rosalind's life was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unbreakable bond between mother and child. With every step forward, she proved that even the darkest past could give way to the brightest dawn. Rosalind's journey through healing was far from linear. It was a winding path marked by moments of hope and shadows of pain that threatened to pull her back into the darkness she fought so hard to escape. Each morning, as sunlight gently warmed the nursery where her child slept peacefully, she felt a bittersweet mix of joy and the lingering weight of fear. The quiet of her new home was a stark contrast to the chaos of her past, yet the echoes of Frederick's cruelty still reverberated in the corners of her mind. Nightmares haunted her. Sleep and sudden triggers, a raised voice, a slammed door, sent shivers down her spine, reminding her how deeply her scars ran. Despite these struggles, Rosalind found strength in the love that blossomed within her. Her child's innocent laughter became a beacon of light, a daily reminder of why she had endured so much. This tiny life depended on her resilience, and she was determined to create a world of safety and love for them both. Therapy sessions became a sanctuary where Rosalind could confront her pain and unravel the tangled emotions left by years of abuse. With each session, she learned to forgive herself, to understand that the violence she endured was never her fault. Slowly, piece by piece, she rebuilt her shattered self-esteem and found new ways to express her strength. Friends and allies stood steadfast by her side, offering support and encouragement. Legal battles against Frederick raged on, a fierce fight for justice and protection. Every piece of evidence Rosalind presented chipped away at the lies Frederick tried to weave, exposing the truth to the world. The courtroom became a place of reckoning, where Rosalind's courage shone brightest and public support swelled in her favor. Meanwhile, Frederick's power waned, his reputation tarnished by the revelations and his relentless vendettas. His brother Ashton, once a looming threat, found himself isolated and powerless as the family's dark secrets spilled into the light. Outside the courtroom, Rosalind channeled her pain into purpose. She began advocating for others trapped in cycles of abuse, speaking at support groups and raising awareness. Her story became a source of hope for many, a testament to the strength found in survival. As the seasons changed, so did Rosalind's life. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer defined her. Surrounded by love and safety, she embraced a future filled with possibility and peace. Her journey from darkness into light was a powerful reminder that even after the deepest wounds, healing is possible, and freedom is worth fighting for. Rosalind's healing journey was a fragile dance between reclaiming joy and confronting lingering fears. Each morning, as sunlight poured softly through her bedroom window, she was reminded of the life she had fought to protect, a life full of promise and innocence. Yet, the shadows of her past still whispered in the quiet moments, testing her resolve. Memories of Frederick's rage and the suffocating silence that followed haunted her, creeping into her dreams and waking thoughts alike. Despite these shadows, Rosalind embraced each day with renewed courage, determined to build a world where her child could grow without fear. Her support system became her lifeline, friends who listened without judgment, counselors who guided her through the maze of trauma, and legal advocates who stood firm against the forces trying to pull her back into darkness. Therapy was a sanctuary where Rosalind learned to face the storm within, unwrapping layers of pain and discovering reservoirs of strength she never knew she had. The process was painful but transformative, allowing her to forgive herself and envision a future not defined by abuse, but by resilience and hope. Yet, freedom was not without its battles. Frederick's attempts to regain control manifested through relentless legal challenges and covert intimidation. Threatening messages, unwanted surveillance, and public smears sought to undermine Rosalind's peace and credibility. Each attack was a stark reminder that escaping an abuser often meant facing battles on multiple fronts. But Rosalind's determination only grew stronger. With every court hearing, every testimony, she chipped away at Frederick's power, exposing the truth and gaining the support of a community inspired by her bravery. As Frederick's influence waned, his family's dark secrets unraveled, revealing the toxic web that had ensnared Rosalind. Ashton's bitterness turned inward as isolation set in, leaving him powerless against the tide of justice. Meanwhile, Rosalind's voice grew louder beyond the courtroom walls. She became a beacon for others trapped in silence, sharing her story, to break stigmas and foster solidarity. Through public speaking and community involvement, she transformed pain into purpose, offering hope to women who had suffered in silence for too long. Amidst the chaos of legal battles and advocacy, Rosalind found solace in the simple joys of motherhood. Watching her child discover the world, hearing first words, and sharing quiet moments of affection filled her heart with a profound sense of peace. These moments were her victories, reminders that love could heal and rebuild what darkness had tried to destroy. Though the scars remained, visible and invisible, Rosalind refused to let them define her. She had transformed from a frightened bride into a warrior, a mother who had reclaimed her life through sheer strength and unwavering love. Her journey was far from over, but with each step, she moved further into the light, ready to face the future with hope and resilience. After years of turmoil, pain, and relentless struggle, Rosalind finally stepped into a chapter of her life defined not by fear or survival, but by peace, hope, and new beginnings. The storm that had once threatened to consume her had passed, leaving behind a woman transformed, stronger, wiser, and fiercely determined to build a future filled with love and possibility. Her new home was a sanctuary. Nestled in a quiet town, far from the shadows of her past, it was filled with sunlight, laughter, and the soft sounds of her child's footsteps. Each room echoed with memories of healing, a place where scars could slowly fade and new dreams could take root. The walls that once confined her had been replaced by open spaces, symbolizing the freedom she had fought so hard to claim. Rosalind embraced motherhood with a fierce love that shaped every decision she made. Every milestone, from the first smile to the first steps, was a celebration of resilience and hope. She created traditions filled with warmth and joy, surrounding her child with the kind of love she had always deserved but rarely known. Through her eyes, the world was a place of wonder and endless possibility, a world she was determined to protect. Her advocacy work blossomed into a powerful mission. Rosalind became a voice for countless women who had faced abuse and trauma, using her story to inspire change and foster a community of support. Public speaking engagements, workshops, and partnerships with organizations dedicated to healing and empowerment became a source of purpose and fulfillment. Each time she shared her journey, she helped shatter the silence and stigma that too often surround domestic violence. Legal battles, once fierce and draining, became distant memories as justice prevailed. Frederick's attempts to reclaim control were thwarted, his influence diminished to a whisper in the past. The truth had triumphed, and with it came a sense of closure, a chance for Rosalind to move forward unburdened by fear or doubt. Still, the journey of healing was ongoing. Rosalind learned to navigate the complexities of rebuilding trust, embracing vulnerability, and opening her heart to love once more. She surrounded herself with people who uplifted and supported her, forging bonds that enriched her life and brought joy to her days. As seasons changed, Rosalind's life blossomed into a tapestry of hope, strength, and endless possibilities. The scars of her past, though never forgotten, became symbols of her resilience and courage. She had rewritten her story, from a tale of pain and captivity to one of triumph and new beginnings. With her child by her side, Rosalind faced the future with unwavering faith. Each sunrise was a promise of growth, love, and freedom, a testament to the indomitable human spirit and the power of hope to heal even the deepest wounds. Her journey stood as a beacon for all who struggled in silence, a reminder that no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes. Rosalind had not only survived, she had thrived, becoming a living testament to the strength of love, the courage to fight, and the beauty of new beginnings. As we come to the close of Rosalind's story, it's impossible not to reflect on the incredible journey she has taken. From the moment she said "I do," believing in a future filled with love and happiness, to the dark, painful reality of betrayal and abuse, Rosalind's life has been a testament to both the fragility and the immense strength of the human spirit. Her story is one many may find familiar, yet it stands out because of the courage it took to face the shadows and fight back. It reminds us that behind every smile can be a battle we cannot see, behind every seemingly perfect family, a struggle that tests the very core of a person's strength. What makes Rosalind's journey so powerful is her transformation, from a woman trapped by fear and doubt to a fierce warrior who claimed her freedom and reclaimed her life. She teaches us that, no matter how deep the wounds, healing is possible. No matter how dark the night, dawn will come. For many watching, this story may resonate on a deeply personal level. Perhaps you have felt the weight of silence, the pain of betrayal, or the struggle to find hope in hopelessness. Rosalind's journey is a beacon, showing that survival is not only about enduring, but about rising, about finding strength in the most unexpected places. Remember, healing is not linear. It comes with ups and downs, moments of light and shadows. But every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. It's a promise to yourself that you deserve peace, love, and joy. If you or someone you know is going through a difficult time, struggling in silence, remember you are not alone. There are people ready to listen, ready to help. Reach out. Speak up. Your story matters. Let Rosalind's courage inspire you to seek help, to break the chains that bind you, and to find your own path to freedom. You are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and worthy of a life filled with happiness and safety. As we close this chapter, think about the power of love, not just romantic love, but the love for oneself, the fierce protection of those we care about, and the compassion we extend to others. Love can heal, transform, and give us the strength to face whatever comes next. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If Rosalind's story touched your heart, consider sharing it. Help spread awareness and hope to others who may need it. Your voice can make a difference. Remember, every ending is a new beginning. The future is unwritten, and with courage and hope, you can write your own story, one of resilience, love, and endless possibilities. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never forget, your story matters.